let me begin with introduction. So I'm the guy on the left. This is Dave Jones. Um, I what's most relevant is how Mike and I and all the folks that are part of this today can help you, because this is about you, learn and become more educated about the franchise world. How are we going to do that? Well, I have 26 years of corporate experience. So, like many of you, it was a transition from corporate job to business ownership. During my corporate tenure, I was successful with 2 US patents for merchandising. And since then, I've got 14 years of industry experience in the franchise world. And that comes in a number of forms. I was a franchise owner of a single unit from 2008 to 2016, and I sold that business. It was a very successful business that we grew and sold. That was the plan. Since leaving in 2016, I worked for a franchise for a year and a half. So I know a little bit about the development schedules and what a franchisor is looking to do to grow their brand. Um, that's when I had the title of Corporate VP of Operations and Resales. And today, in addition from being your host and a franchise business consultant, I'm going to be a multi-unit franchise owner starting first quarter of 2021 in a brand that you'll hear about a little bit today called Petwell Clinic. So that's me. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. And good morning, everybody. We want to thank you for taking time to join us. And let's talk about how we can help you think about some important options. So as you can see, I am based in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been humbly blessed with being in the franchising industry for 28 years. And I've had the chance to both be on the entrepreneurial and the corporate side of franchising. So a multi-unit franchisee, had the pleasure of serving on a number of franchisee advisory councils, as well as being a master franchisee. And I want to talk about my corporate tenureship. This is in no way to slight corporate America at all, but I did have an opportunity to spend the better part of 2 decades on the corporate side of franchising, primarily with Burger King. And a few years back, Burger King was purchased by 3G Capital. And unfortunately, there were 380 of my colleagues, that were let go. And this is pre-pandemic. And I've got to tell you, that was a big eye opener for me back then. And this year in 2020, Dave and I have been working with so many people that have either been displaced or furloughed or in some state of transition. What that all tells me is that there isn't any more security in a corporate job than there is, potentially owning your own business. So anyway, that being said, I was a corporate VP of franchise operations, as well as a franchise business leader, consulting directly with franchisees of Burger King Corporation and some other international franchise brands. My goal now is to really help anybody that is considering entrepreneurship as a career diversification option. So let's talk a little bit of what we're going to cover today. As you all know, a lot of people often ask us, hey, is now a good time to be looking at a franchise opportunity or looking at getting into business? It's actually a great time to be exploring and getting educated on franchising. And we're going to talk about that today. Why now is a good time to, get educated and explore these options. There's been a number of people that finally have the time, that have always thought about owning their own business. Well, they've got a little breathing room and they're able to do that now. We're also going to talk about what franchising is going to look like after the pandemic. The other thing we're going to talk about is that, there's 4,000 franchises out there, and they're not all created equal, as you would expect. There's good and bad. We're going to talk about the key factors that make for a good franchise organization And in that same context, entrepreneurship and franchising isn't for everybody. The one thing that I could confidently tell you is today, you're going to see how this is an educational process. This is not a sales driven process. We want to help you determine if franchising could be a viable option for you to think about. We're also going to talk about what you need to know before you buy a franchise. It's a very open book due diligence process, and there is a number of legal and financial considerations that will go into your discernment. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. As a matter of fact, we're going to have a lender, a franchise lender on with us to talk about how you can fund your business. And last but not least, we're going to give everybody an opportunity to schedule a one-on-one with Dave and I so we can talk about the viability of franchising for you. What are some of the reasons why people gravitate toward the franchising model? Well, the headline says it. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. When you're exploring franchises, good franchises understand that they're providing you with a proven business model. There's nothing that's guaranteed, but with franchising, there's an element of mitigating risk. When you join a franchise system, you have the opportunity to get educated on their business model, their systems and processes and resources, and most importantly, that franchisor support. When you become part of a franchise system as an investor, when investors that I'm working with are looking at this industry, they quickly understand that you are compressing time and you're compressing capital. That's a big deal. You're compressing time and you're compressing capital. The franchise company has got a roadmap for you to success, and they continue to not only provide you upfront training and support, that is ongoing. It continues through your relationship with that franchisor. And the other thing about franchising that's real important is that you have access to other franchise owners. I'll tell you, being part of different franchise systems, some of the longest and dearest relationships I've had are with former fellow franchisees that you end up collaborating with because you're all on the same team, and there's a real power and value that comes with that. The other important aspects of franchising is what I said earlier. Okay, when it comes to corporate job or being your own boss, Dave is going to touch on this. With franchising, it doesn't mean that you have to be an owner operator. Okay, there's plenty of business models out there in which you could be semi-absentee. As I said, Dave will go into that, but you're the driver of your success. You're betting on yourself. That's what you're doing when you go into a franchise system. You're looking to become a CEO of the company that you create, where you're working on the business versus in it. It's also a great way. We have plenty of people that are secured or doing parallel searches that are secured in their jobs, or they're looking at other options to diversify their financial portfolio. Let's face it, it's a great way to hedge. Who knows? Nobody has a crystal ball on what the market's going to look like going forward. It's a great diversification tool that you could leverage. Whether you want to keep your job or you're in the middle of looking for one, there is a path that you could leverage when it comes to the franchising industry. And last but not least, when we work with you one-on-one, let's talk about what you're looking to achieve. What are your business goals? Franchising enables you to achieve a work-life balance. There's also an opportunity to scale, and if you're an empire builder, to scale and grow a business. Franchising is nothing more than paths to get you from point A to point B. And we'd like to understand what that may be for you and go from there. The other thing you'll see about franchising is that 90% of the people that end up becoming franchisees enjoy operating their business. It's very fulfilling. And 73% would do it again. You have a lot of multi-unit franchisees out there, which we'll talk about as well.
Let me introduce to you Fran Fund. Fran Fund is a partner for the franchise consulting company. And Shirley, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Shirley is a wonderful, uh, tremendously informed, intelligent, and I don't know how else to describe you, Shirley, other than you've got the stage.
Hey, I'll take that, Dave. That's a good introduction as far as I'm concerned. And hey, everyone, thanks so much for having me here. It's really great to talk with you. As Dave mentioned, my name is Shirley Kefchin. I am a senior funding consultant at Fran Fund. And really, Fran Fund exists to help folks identify and execute solid funding strategies for business ownership. So we've been around just about 15 years now. The company was actually founded by a veteran in the franchise space because he really recognized that there was sort of a gap between people who were interested in business ownership and the money that it takes to get these businesses open. So his goal was to really fill that gap. And, we've been able to do a really good job as a top franchise supplier, mentioned in Entrepreneur Magazine. We are an IFA supplier forum member, that International Franchise Association that Dave mentioned. We also really try to help make business ownership accessible and available to veterans. So we do offer discounts for veterans and promote and participate in the VetFram program that the International Franchise Association provides. So what I want to talk with you a little bit about are some of the potential ways that you could fund your small business. The first way is equity funding. And what that really means is we are taking capital from a third party in exchange for equity or ownership in the business itself. So this would include things like angel investors, venture capital, those sorts of ideas. Another thing that folks will sometimes think about is more of an asset-backed strategy, which means that the asset that we're actually financing is being used as the security for the funding mechanism itself. So again, this might be an equipment lease. This could be maybe a non-retirement investment portfolio that you have. You could potentially get a line of credit against that. Now, this third bullet point here, debt funding, is really what it sounds like. This involves borrowing. So sometimes folks will use a home equity line of credit. Sometimes they might use credit cards to help as part of the strategy. Another really common option is a traditional bank loan, an SBA loan. And that's one of the things that we'll be talking about in a little bit more detail here today. Now, the fourth bullet point that you see there is self-funding. Again, fairly self-explanatory. You can take cash, you can take savings and invest that money into your business. But what you might not be aware of is that there is an IRS program that actually allows you to invest your own retirement savings directly into your business. And that's another strategy that we'll be talking about today, actually next year.
After all that we've talked about, we want you to hear from a couple of folks that we had the pleasure of working with. These folks went through the process. They did a great job with their discernment and due diligence. So that being said, I'd like to introduce, Dave Kowchek. Just to tell you a little bit about Dave, he was a successful entrepreneur prior who formerly owned a major construction business that he has since sold. And he just became a Petwell Clinic franchisee and has been awarded 8 locations in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania market. So Dave, if you'd like, if you could read those questions off the slide and, share a little bit of your story, that would be great. Let me turn it over to you, Dave.
All right. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Dave Kowchek. I live in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh. And one of the questions, the first one is what did you do prior for the franchise? Like Mike said, I owned a large construction company nationwide. I owned it, ran it for almost 3 decades and had enough of that type of business and the people involved with it. And I just, for many reasons, sold the business and basically was sitting on the sidelines for a little while. And then some franchise opportunities came available from Dave Jones, and we went through them. Once Dave had an idea on what my interests were and so forth. He picked out several different franchise to look at, and then when Petwell came to on my lap, it piqued my interest. And as a pet lover, my entire family, everything about Petwell hit every mark. As Rob and Dave explained earlier, they did a great job. A lot of the same stuff. I don't want to repeat what they said, but it got me away from the corporate nonsense. You know, you didn't know people's faces from names. Petwell Clinic's going to be completely different. I'll have interaction with my vets, my vet tech, you know, and everything about Petwell. You're actually doing something fun and you're helping animals, and it just gives you a good overall feeling instead of the construction business. It was a cutthroat type of business. Petwell as well, like you said, I didn't want to be involved in 40-hour a week anymore. I have two young kids, so it fit well. I don't have to, once I get them up and running, I believe that I can sit back and let my manager and my vets run the operation. But at the same time, if I want to feel good about myself, I can visit these franchise locations and just see what's happening and see people's pets and see the service that we will be providing. As far as the franchise consultant being involved with this process, it was an absolute ideal situation, and they bring so much to the table. You know, it's almost like, would you go represent yourself in court without an attorney? Similar here, I wouldn't go own a franchise without having the franchise consulting involved. They they handheld me throughout the process, answered all my questions in a timely manner, and made sure that the franchise opportunities fit my eye, so to speak. So overall, again, I would definitely, if I was going to move forward with another franchise, even after Petwell, my first call would be to a franchise consultant.
So this is interesting, folks. You know, the one thing I can tell you, the common theme through our lunch and learn today is, you know, recession resilient, pandemic resistant, and can't be Amazon. You know, with Mitch and Leslie, the one thing that we know we're never going to run out of is trash. So I would like to introduce Mitch and Leslie Bradshaw. They have been longtime successful Ace Hardware owners who wanted to diversify their portfolio. They were looking to add another revenue stream. And I had the pleasure of meeting two great entrepreneurs that were new to franchising and had the pleasure of working with. So Mitch and Leslie, if you're there, I'd like to turn it over to you. And very similar, you know, you can share a little bit about, you know, what you did prior to becoming a franchisee and go through those next couple of questions there.
Okay, Mike, I appreciate it. I'll just go ahead and jump into the what did you do prior to becoming a franchisee. As you mentioned, we have been involved with Ace Hardware since 2007. My dad actually opened this location in '93, so it's been in the family for quite some time. And then we bought it from him in 2010. And my wife and I are both involved in the operations of it on a pretty much everyday basis. Before that, I was in the corporate world with UPS Supply Chain Solutions in an outside sales regional manager type capacity. Did several things involved with outside sales. Leslie was actually involved with mortgage banking, mortgage processing, loan origination. Lived in the Metroplex and, you know, moved out to the small town of Mineral Wells, Texas to get away from it all. So that's kind of what, you know, with Ace Hardware, it's not exactly a franchise, but it kind of lends itself a little bit towards franchise. A lot of people think it's a franchise, but it's not. So we had that mindset, I guess, going for us a little bit. And I'll let Leslie take the next question.
Hi guys, Mike, it's really nice to hear your voice again. why we chose Smash My Trash was Mike gave us a lot of really good different franchise opportunities to look at, but we looked at, as soon as we heard Smash My Trash, it was a little bit more than what we actually wanted to spend. But when we looked at the, with owning Ace Hardware, we have a ton of money tied up in inventory, overhead, employees, and that tends to get really expensive and tends to be a headache on most days. So Smash My Trash was attractive because it was low overhead, limited employees, and we had zero inventory, which really kind of piqued our interest. And then, and not to mention the margins are really, really good. And we felt like it was recession proof. We felt like it would be COVID proof. And so it made sense for Mitch and I to choose Smash My Trash. Plus it's a brand new concept, which can be a challenge, but I think in the long run, it's really going to do well and pay off for us.
Yeah, and if I could add to that a little bit, I mean, I had the conversation with our oldest son not long before I made contact with Mike about, if you're going to choose a business, try to choose one with low inventory and low overhead. And that was really, because Leslie and I had talked about opening up another location of Ace Hardware. But the challenges of having another location of an Ace Hardware store, of a retail store on that magnitude, are really just the oversight, the management of it are just kind of daunting, with all the inventory that you have, the employees that you have, the cost of the space, and all of that stuff. So it was kind of little to no inventory, very little overhead is what kind of made the Smash My Trash jump off the paper at both of us. It was on the high end of what we thought we would even consider spending, but then we just, with the help of other people involved, made it happen. What did you appreciate most when working with the franchise consultant?
Mike. Mike was a joy to work with on a weekly basis. I can't say enough good things about you, Mike. You really kind of put me at ease as far as we were new to the franchise, if you will, because we just bought it from Mitch's parents and we were just kind of groomed to take it over. So it was a new concept. Mike, you did a great job with getting, kind of walking us through the process. And, I can say that I kind of missed our weekly phone calls.
Oh, I appreciate that from both of you. Thank you so much, Leslie. And you guys were a pleasure to work with. That's what it's all about. So I'm just happy that, you guys are going to be launching here in 2021, and wish you much success. So thanks to Dave, Mitch, and Leslie for taking time out today to share your experience with our audience. So
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
If I can, real quick, I just want to say congratulations to everybody on this call for taking that first step, because this, I think, is the first step. I mean, during my conversation with you, I mentioned to you, I said, oh, so you're kind of a headhunter for franchises. I mean, I had no idea the franchise consultant even existed. And you walked us through the process and made us comfortable with the process. And, I just want to say congratulations to everybody for taking that first step, because you never know where it could go from here.